Where tyranny dies and wisdom lives. The Charlie Kirk Show.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. I want to tell you guys about YRefi. That is YRefi.com, YREFY.com. Massive supporters of our campus tour that is coming up in just a couple of weeks. You guys got to take a look at it at YRefi.com. Private student loan debt in America totals about $300 billion. YRefi refinances distressed or defaulted private student loans that others will not touch. YRefi can reduce your monthly payment and guarantees interest rates under 6%. Ensuring affordability and financial relief. You could finally take control of your student loan situation with a plan that works for you. Go to YRefi.com. That is YREFY.com. Bad credit is accepted, and if you have a co-borrower, YRefi can get them released from the loan. Go to YRefi.com. That is YREFY.com. Again, somebody in this audience, I guarantee, has distressed private student loan debt or knows somebody that does. So call 888-YREFI34 or log on to YRefi.com. That is YREFY.com. May not be available in all 50 states. Bad credit is accepted. Go to YRefi.com. That is YREFY.com. Email us as always, freedom@charliekirk.com. We'll be right back. Okay, everybody, welcome back. Email us, as always, freedom@charliekirk.com. Orin McIntyre continues us. Orin, do you have a thought on the Civil Rights Act being the new American founding and how modern America is largely based on this idea of disparate impact, critical theory that has grown into all of our institutions going back to the Civil Rights Act?
Yeah, it's absolutely wild what conservatives will allow under the name of the Civil Rights Act. Normally, we would recognize a program that basically had the legal right to go into every business, into every school, into every organization, and demand how they organize themselves, who they can hire, how they can do business. We would recognize that as a Soviet-style engineering program, a social engineering program from the top down. And yet we allow this because we've basically adopted the Civil Rights Act as our second constitution. We like to think that ultimately whatever trade-offs we're giving with our freedom are okay because at the end of the day, they're bringing about a harmonious society. But of course, when the Civil Rights Act was originally sold, the idea was this was a temporary measure. We had had an unfair system that had targeted Black Americans in a way that we found ultimately morally reprehensible, and we needed to make big changes. But the funny thing about all government programs is they never sunset, they never go away. And so even though after decades and decades of having its thumb on the scales, we haven't seen a vast improvement in the African American community's situation. In fact, in many ways, we've seen it degrade due to the Civil Rights Act. Despite that, we continue to say the only option is to pour more and more effort into this. And each time we're giving away different freedoms and giving the government a blank check to involve itself in all of our lives. Think about the ways in which the Civil Rights Act was abused with all of the trans and all the gender madness, the way that it can be used to pressure all of these different organizations to take action. This is, again, a blank check on government for government power that Republicans would never allow in any other situation, but have embraced because they're so terrified of being called racist. Because if you point out that this program has run its course and the government no longer needs this power, we're not going to go back to Jim Crow tomorrow if it was repealed, and yet we continue to act as if it's necessary for to have like a Stasi-like control over race relations in the United States.
Look, the importance here is this is a big opportunity if we can lower crime. This can be a test case for the rest of the country. What needs to happen for that to occur in Washington, D.C.?
Well, the big, bold decision here is important, but like all leaders who make big, bold decisions, Donald Trump has to deliver. We have to see a significant change in the safety in Washington, D.C. Now, he's putting National Guard troops on the ground. He's federalizing control of the police. And if they can change the way that they do their job, if they can make their presence known, if they can police communities that otherwise were off limits, if they can actually carry out their jobs, that's a huge deal. But also, of course, the prosecution is a big deal. The fact that we don't actually put people in jail, we don't give them appropriate charges, we make sweetheart deals. These things also help to facilitate crime in the area. you're now basically own the safety in Washington, D.C., which, again, could be a huge political liability if you don't follow through, but can be a massive victory if you do. So Donald Trump has taken a bold step here, and he's taken on big responsibilities. That's what great leaders do. But great leaders also have to follow through. And so he can't get cold feet on this, of course. He needs to make sure that he is using that power, using that authority to increase the safety in Washington, D.C. And I haven't been there many times, but the few times that I have, let me tell you, I really wish there would have been more police on the street. I think this is ultimately going to be a popular move.
I hope so. And I would say that the challenge in front of the Trump administration is going to be both a show of force, but also tangibly being able to connect the show of force with a reduction in crime. And honestly, I don't think we should put up with these blue city hellholes. Final thoughts, Orin McIntyre. What do you have to say to people that say that we should forget the blue cities and retreat away from them?
Look, ultimately, I think there is some level of self-sorting that is occurring in the United States. I live in Florida, where a lot of people fled during the COVID madness because they wanted to live in a state that was sane and wouldn't steal their freedoms due to this biomedical tyranny. But at the same time, we have to recognize that blue cities are some of our most important cultural and economic production spots in the United States. And the real problem with blue cities is that they're run by the Democrats, and obviously are soft on the populations that might be creating crime there. And so something that has to change ultimately is that these guys can't be allowed to continue these policies that are destroying some of our most important cities and states. Now, Trump has already talked about the possibility of expanding this program beyond Washington, D.C. That has a whole nother mess of legal categories that you have to deal with. Obviously, the president has far more direct power over Washington, D.C. due to the constitutional setup there. However, if you see big success here in Washington, D.C., I think a lot of people might start asking questions like, why aren't we doing this in Chicago? Why aren't we doing this in New York? Why are we allowing this crime when we know how to fix it?
It can be a template for the rest of the nation. Orin McIntyre, thank you so much. Email us freedom@charliekirk.com. Subscribe to our podcast. We'll be right back.